Happening now on another special edition of Grid Tonight. Joseph Newgarden's looking very confident after day 3 of practice. His team is the Team Penske driver, one of the favorites for the pole, entering Fast Friday. Hello to all of our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lambert, and with me again, Joshua Birch from JB Motorsports. Make sure you head over to his YouTube channel for his watch-along coverage throughout the month of May. Link in the video description below. We encourage everyone to interact with us in the chat, support us through Super Chat, and visit GridNetworkTV.com for our latest content. Now, Josh, take it away with tonight's recap of Thursday's practice for the 109th running of the Indianapolis 500. We finally got a full day of running, and thank you, Mother Nature, for letting us see cars on track for all 6 hours.
Yeah, finally got a clean day in, all 6 hours, and only one track inspection as well. It was delightful. However, we didn't see the last hour of it that much. Sky UK had a massive power outage across the whole of the country, so we were fighting to see that final hour in commentary ourselves. But we got the gist of it. We got a busy day done as well. It was another strong day of practice though for Team Penske, with Joseph Newgarden topping the overall speed chart at 226.632 miles per hour. He also led the way with the fastest no speed run as well, 222.555. But looking at the overall speed, it was Scott Dixon second fastest, followed by Connor Daly, Pato O'Ward, and Ryan Hunter-Reay, rounding out the top 5 as well. Now, when it comes to the no-toe speeds, as we were just talking about, yes, we've had Newgarden fastest with that, but Kyle Kirkwood, second fastest behind Newgarden, followed then by Scott McLaughlin, Devlin DeFrancesco, and Colton Herta in 5th position. Team Penske's in the top 5, and Will Power ended the day in 6th in no-toe, and the photo taken there by James Black from Penske Entertainment as well. Joe, from the corner of my eye, it almost looked like Ronald McDonald with the livery. I was convinced just in the corner of my eye as I was reading the script there. It's quite funny. But does Team Penske look like the favourites for pole as we go into Fast Friday tomorrow?
Yeah, that seems like that's the obvious answer to this question. It's got to be yes. Yeah, it was interesting, looking at the overall speed report versus the no-toe report, and when you're looking at the overall speed, it seems to be quite competitive there. Obviously with Team Penske leading the way, and then the other driver McLaughlin and Power, across the speed chart there. But when it comes to the no-toe report, which is really going to be extremely important tomorrow, and then obviously in qualifying, Team Penske is right up there in the top 6. It shows, that they got qualifying all dialed in, and I would not be surprised if all 3 Team Penske drivers make it to the pole shootout on Sunday afternoon. Another great day for Joseph Newgarden. Just seeing his demeanor at the track these last few days, especially today, he's so cool, calm, and collective. He seems extremely confident about the car that he has, and as we mentioned yesterday, ending practice early because he felt confident in the program they put together for Wednesday, and their Thursday program seemed like they, checked everything off their checklist, checked all the boxes, and seems like that number 2 team has everything figured out. And as we said yesterday, the rest of the competition is probably going to be afraid, because Joseph Newgarden and his number 2 team, they're currently performing at an all-time high, and the only persons that could really run in his way is probably going to be Alex Palou, and Palou had his own issues today in practice, but he was still pretty quick. We'll get on about Alex Palou's troubles a little bit later in tonight's program, but Joseph Newgarden, Team Penske, looking extremely fast. But I want to mention one driver you mentioned, Josh, on your list is Connor Daly. I feel like we haven't really talked about Connor Daly enough this week because Juncos Hollinger Racing has a number 76 Chevrolet completely dialed in, looks extremely fast, and I would not be surprised, when it comes to the race itself, if we see Connor Daly pick up a top 10 finish, or even better. He's just, this car is just looking extremely fast.
I've put him as one of my early top 5s, actually, Kobe. In the watch-along commentary, I was saying it, that he is genuinely a contender to win this race. For once, Daly looks like he's laser-focused. He's very much committed on the circuit. It looks good. So, yeah, keep an eye on it. And this week, we've been talking more about Ed Carpenter Racing, the car being a favourite to make the pole shootout and contend for that front row start. However, today's no-toe results showed a very big surprise. Alexander Rossi was the fastest ECR driver, 29th on the no-toe report. Christian Rasmussen was 31st, and Ed Carpenter 33rd overall as well. Some shocking speed runs, and They did try a load of race simulation with that data being good. We know we've got more Fast Fridays coming when they turn up the boost as well. But should Ed Carpenter Racing be concerned by not being further up these charts now 3 days into this practice run?
This may surprise you, it may not, but I honestly don't think Ed Carpenter Racing should be concerned quite yet. Yes, it was really surprising to see them that far down on the no speed charts, but if you look at the overall speed charts, Christian Rasmussen, he was eighth fastest, Alexander Rossi 11th, and then Ed Carpenter, the boss, he was 25th fastest. So there are speed in those ECR Chevys. It's just the matter of what they're gonna look like on Fast Friday. I will tell you, if they're at the bottom of the no-toe report tomorrow on Fast Friday, I would be really concerned about where their program is going heading into qualifying day on Saturday. But given their history at this track, given how they always bring strong cars, I'm not really concerned about where they are right now. But yeah, it was quite a surprise to see all of them quite down there on the no-toe report.
Yeah, and speaking of being concerned, one driver who showed a tremendous amount of concern yesterday and today was Santino Ferrucci. For the last few days, his number 14 AJ Foyt Racing team have struggled to replicate the speed we've seen from him at the track for the last several years. Ferrucci showed his frustration on track during practice when he went around of Devlin DiFrancesco, exiting the pits with all four wheels above the white line. IndyCar made Ferrucci come back to the pits to serve a penalty for this dangerous maneuver as well. Ferrucci was 21st fastest in the no-toe results, but he was 33rd out of 34 drivers on the overall speeds at 219.630 miles per hour. The team gave him multiple setups to try, and they finally got the car to a point where they felt more comfortable driving it as well. But he did mention that they wouldn't be able to rely and really try out the changes until Monday's practice session. But since everyone is shifting gears to qualifying mode tomorrow, it's not going to be too big of a loss. But he did sound a little bit happier, didn't he, Kobe, over the radio? He said, now we can work with it. Now we've got something to go forward. And does it look like the number 14 team could either be in trouble or just now starting to rebuild to a good momentum?
I guess the two words I can give our audience is to stay tuned, right? Because it seemed like towards the end of the day that they finally figured out what the problem was, and this has probably been one of the biggest surprises so far during the month of May, because Santino Ferrucci always seemed to show up at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, especially AJ Foyt Racing. Even in the years when AJ Foyt Racing have struggled a lot, while they might have struggled at the other ovals or the other road and street courses, they always showed up to the month of May with fast cars, and they were able to show what they could do at the speedway. But this year, David Malukas, his teammate, seems to be off to a really good start. But when it comes to Santino Ferrucci, I don't know what's been going on with that number 14 team. It seems like they've been throwing the kitchen sink at it, trying to figure out what on earth is going on with the car, because Ferrucci, the cars he's had in the last few years, been extremely fast and haven't had really much of an issue on the no-toe report or overall speed. But this year, it just seemed like that the car, just hasn't been driving to his liking, and they just really have no speed whatsoever. And at the end, as mentioned, Josh, it seemed like they found something, or where they knew what the problem was with the car, so they can work on that Monday, and then Friday for carb day, and we'll see if they can try to get the car dialed in, so Ferrucci can keep his top 10 streak alive for the 7th consecutive year. But before you can race, you have to first qualify, and yeah, the no-toe report, you mentioned he was 21st fastest, which is okay, but still not really what you'd expect from this 14 team, given how well they qualified last year. But that's something that you can at least be okay with right now on a no-toe report. So if it comes up tomorrow that he's down on the no-toe report, like say outside the top 30, then that team should be extremely concerned of what can happen. But we're just gonna have to wait and see what they're able to do. And Josh, I'm not sure if you caught this, but on the broadcast they were talking about the alliance between AJ Foyt Racing and Team Penske, and based on the conversation we're having, it seems like Santino has a lot of pride, in building his own setups, with his own setups, based on his knowledge of the car, instead of relying on what David Malukas is doing, or like what the others are doing. Like you have access to the data that Joseph Newgarden has, Scott McLaughlin, Will Power, and they were saying, if you have that, why don't you use it? Or even your teammate David Malukas. But Santino seemed headstrong against doing that, because he wants to do his own thing. And David mentioned the fact that Santino likes his cars to drive a certain way and said that he can't really drive, the car the same way that the Penske drivers do. But my 2 cents are, if things have been looking how it's been looking so far in the first 3 days of practice, like what do you got to lose? At least
Yeah.
at least try absolutely everything instead of try to figure it out, do this and do that. Yeah, if you have access to Team Penske setups, I think the best thing you can do is just throw Joseph Newgarden setup on a car, see how it goes. You'll go through all the Penske drivers setups and see which one works best for you. I just think that this number 14 team, they need to throw absolutely everything they can at this to, first make the race and then give Santino a car that's very racy.
Yeah, they should at least have tried that today. They've got tomorrow, but that's Fast Friday. You don't really mess around with race setups. That's going to be the 2-hour session on Monday, which isn't a lot to dial in. Before then, carb day is very much we're bolting in what we want to run with in the race. You don't touch the car after that because then it's race day. So I would have changed several setups. They sound like they're happy at the moment, but a lot can change. And as I said, they've got a few more simulator time before we get going for Monday's final practice, before we lock the cars in, as I said, for carb day. So we had our first on-track accident during the month of May with Ed Commodore Racing's Christian Rasmussen spinning on the exit of turn 2 and backing the rear of the number 21 Chevrolet into the outside wall, right in front of Kyle Larson, who as well. We do now know that Rasmussen was on 31 lap old tyres. He was on a very long run, just trying to see exactly how far they could run. He was quoted as saying that he understeered at turn 2, mainly down to the wind, got loose exit and brushed the rear. All is okay, and he's got a fast car, but glad to have got that out of the way. The booth then reported that Rasmussen, as we said, was on 31 lap old tyres at the time of the spin, and in his 2 years of racing in Indianapolis, Rasmussen got away with a lot of risky moves last year, and of course Nolan Siegel voiced his frustration on the radio about Rasmussen's antics behind the wheel before the accident happened. So with this as well now happening today in practice, is this incident sort of going to force Rasmussen to rein in his aggression? And what must have been going through Kyle Larson's mind when all this happened directly in front of him? It was super close to a big accident.
Yeah. Focus on Christian Rasmussen first. I'll be honest. I'm surprised it took this long for Rasmussen to crash the car. And if you watched some of our programs last year for the Indy 500, I was on the record saying, I said Christian Rasmussen is making some daring moves, and I think it's going to all go wrong for him. And even on our pre-race show last year, I predicted that if someone would crash, it would probably be Christian Rasmussen because of how aggressive he was, just throwing the car in the corners, and making these bold moves that most drivers would not take at all. But he made it stick, until today. Yeah, and you mentioned Josh. I'm saying, glad to have gotten that out of the way. And I'm really surprised it took this long. But it's a good thing you'd rather get out of the way now and compared to race day. I don't know if this is going to rein in his aggression or anything like that. But now he truly knows where the limit is now at Indy. Now that he's crashed the car here, and actually, the damage wasn't really that bad. It was mostly a spin and kissed the wall with the rear of the car. So overall, I think Christian Rasmussen escaped that pretty well. So the team's just gonna have to do minor damage repair. It'd be good to go for Fast Friday. At least it wasn't like Takuma Sato's accident. When you had to completely rebuild a new car. And at this stage in the game, rebuilding the car is absolutely something that you want to avoid at this point. And in regards to Kyle Larson avoiding that wreck, and even the booth said it themselves. They said that this was kind of like a wreck that he's used to watching in NASCAR, when those drivers on the cup cars are really hustling the car, and then the back end gets squirrely and they just back it into the wall there. Yeah, that's something that Kyle is seeing. And if you saw his onboard, he was just cool, calm, and collective. Behind the wheel, he moved slightly high, and he didn't like completely panic because someone who is inexperienced in this type of racing, you think you see someone spinning, they might jerk the wheel, whatever, and then get in the accident, but he didn't do that. We saw Rasmussen spinning, he just moved slightly high, and it was just like he's been doing this for a very long time in an IndyCar. When this is just really his second race coming up in an IndyCar, and second year doing the Indianapolis 500. And they even said that this was like a wreck he's seen at let's say Daytona or Talladega, with the car just going around right in front of you. So in that case, he's probably the most experienced driver in the field in that aspect.
And speaking of Carl Larson, his backup driver finally got to go out on the circuit because after being delayed for the last couple of days, our McLaren team principal, Tony Kanaan, did finally get on track for his refresher test. He went through each phase, passed with flying colours, and the 50-year-old looked like he hadn't missed a single beat. When Kanaan went into the booth during practice, he said he didn't even want to think about the possibility of having to step in for Carl Larson in the event he has to leave Indianapolis for Charlotte. He mentioned that given his busy duties as team principal, he won't be able to settle down until late Saturday on the night before the Indy 500 as well. But at least he got some more laps here at the Brickyard, even if it wasn't going to be a possibility he might not run at all. But if he does have to become the replacement driver for the number 17 Chevrolet, are you confident that Kanaan will be able to balance his responsibilities of team principal and driver?
Absolutely, I have total confidence in Tony Kanaan being able to come in and do a good job. Although I hope it doesn't come to that. Hopefully, Kyle Larson will be able to run the double as scheduled, unlike last year when Mother Nature had other plans. But Tony Kanaan, I really hope he doesn't have to do this in the other aspect that he's busy as team principal. He was going through all the different things that he has to do. That he has to check so many boxes off on Saturday, and then late Saturday night he's gonna go to sleep and then get up on race day. And right now, he's only thinking about the business side of things at Arrow McLaren. And imagine being in his boots where you have to think about everything happening on the business side, and then you have to get in that mode of being ready to drive the race car. If it comes to that, Tony Kanaan is going to be extremely stressed out to try to do the best job he can for the team. But like you said, even if he doesn't get the race, it was still nice to see him take some more laps at the Brickyard. He's been a beloved fan favorite in this race for so many years, and he probably didn't expect that he was going to be able to get some more laps around this car before around this track, before he was named as a potential replacement driver for Larson if he has to leave for Charlotte. But I do think Tony will do a good job if he has another go at the 500. But I think chances that happen this year are probably unlikely, but never say never.
I think maybe it might have given him a bit of an appetite back to come in for next year, maybe as well at 51. That would be something. A couple of Chip Ganassi racing drivers did run into issues with their cars, but it didn't have too much an effect on the speed shown on the screens as well. Scott Dixon suffered an engine failure yesterday on his final lap of practice. Thankfully, it happened then and not today, where he would have missed a lot of valuable track time. The number 9 team changed it to its 5th engine and will have to take a grid penalty on the streets of Detroit since there aren't any grid penalties for the Indianapolis 500. His teammate Alex Palou then in the morning suffered an oil leak in the opening 20 minutes of practice. The number 10 team pulled him back down Gasoline Alley and found an issue with the drive shaft boot, which contained the oil leak. Thankfully, a quick change and they got him out back on track, barely missing a single beat himself. At the end of practice, Will Buxton reported that the Honda-powered teams would be switching to new engines for Fast Friday and for qualifying as well. So were you surprised to see the Ganassi cars having these fairly basic issues, and what do you make of the Honda team switching to new engines ahead of qualifying?
Well, looking at what happened with the Ganassi cars, I said I got it extremely lucky in both cases because Scott Dixon is good that his engine popped at the end of yesterday, so they were able to have all that time to install a new engine. Unfortunate situation for him on the streets of Detroit, and he's even luckier, that they don't do grid penalties for the Indianapolis 500 because given how it's gotten a little bit more difficult to pass with these hybrid engines. If you're starting in a certain place and have to go a few positions back, could make your job a lot easier. I mean, a lot harder come race day. But I think the number 9 team got very lucky because if it happened today, you could potentially miss out on nearly the whole day of running or the whole day itself. And Alice below and saw, all the oil at the back of the car near the engine cover. I was concerned that he had blown an engine, but thankfully, it was just an issue with the drive shaft boot. As you mentioned, Palou, still quick at the end of the day, so it didn't really do anything to hurt him significantly. As Palou was 6th overall on the speed charts, and Scott Dixon he was 2nd. So whatever happened with them was just a minor issue at the end of the day, and they were able to get things working smoothly for today's practice session. And interesting decision, hearing that the Honda teams are going to be switching to an engine. Maybe it'll be a special engine, with some of that special sauce that I talked about the other night to try to really turn up the whip. And during the broadcast, they were talking about how Honda have seemed to close the gap, to Chevrolet in terms of speed. So maybe Honda has like a secret component in the engine to make it go even faster on Fast Friday and then for qualifying as well.
Just absolutely. I can't wait for this qualifying. It's going to be a lot of fun as well. And speaking of it, expect high winds for Fast Friday and Saturday's qualifying session. This really could complicate things and make putting a quick 4-lap average lap time out there even more challenging for the drivers. There is a possibility that the wind obviously could lead to crashes, which would be a major setback for teams at this stage in the game as well. There's a small chance of rain hanging around the area, but we did get a full day of practicing today, all 6 hours. So there remains a severe weather threat, though, for tomorrow in the Indianapolis weather. It feels like we're just chasing down any green flag running we can get. How could this weather, both the rain that could come in and the strong winds, affect the next couple of days and, of course, shake things up?
Yeah, Josh. This is a real interesting predicament that the teams are going to be in for tomorrow because Fast Friday don't really know what we're going to get. Weather-wise, it looks like we're going to at least be able to start the practice day and get some good running in. Maybe the weather comes in in the late afternoon, early evening, but hopefully we'll be done by, or most people will be, checked all the boxes by the time that happens. Or maybe we get lucky like today and get absolutely no weather at all, get a perfect day in Speedway, Indiana. But I'm actually more concerned about the winds because those cars are going to be going a lot faster in the qualifying boost, and if you're going through the turn, and you catch the wind at the wrong angle, you know what's going to happen, right? You're going to get sucked around, and that's going to be a hard crash. And if you're lucky enough to get out unharmed, the team's going to have to try to rebuild the cars. So although we've been looking at some of the teams who have been struggling with speed, like both Prima entries, at the start of the week, and then Santino Ferrucci's number 14 team as well. Like some of those teams who are having trouble with speed, they might have to capitalize on someone else's misfortune. Someone who has a car right now fast enough to make the Indianapolis 500, they may have an accident on Fast Friday or in qualifying, and that might be the difference between being in the Indy 500 or being out of it. So I think that the win we're going to be seeing tomorrow and then on Saturday as well during day one of the qualifying trials, that's going to really make things super unpredictable as we try to figure out who's going to be in the pole shootout, who's going to be in the last row shootout.
I'm expecting to maybe have to qualify on the Monday. No joke. It looks severe what's coming in. John says the guys at Fox Sports guys were saying how strong the wind will be tomorrow and Saturday. Yeah, it could possibly just delay everything by a couple of days. It is strong, really strong. And the last time we had this kind of wind that came in, it was only light and it blew Herta upside down. We said that in our watch on commentary with analysis on that accident as well. Was Will Power having problems, or is it just me because he wasn't as fast as his teammates? Yeah, as it flies him away. He had a lighter run today, but he's running okay. He was stronger on the early runs of the days as well, wasn't he? He was fastest at the end of day one with I've got it here, 227.026. So he's got the speed inside the car. He should be okay coming in. But I suppose, Kobe, the only thing we've got to say now is before we do prepare for that Fast Friday with the weather coming in, what are your final takeaways from practice? Because the one thing I'm worried about is Graham Rahal says that the rear wasn't as good. He doesn't understand why he can't do 4 consecutive laps and the rear of the car sliding out. That's going to be detrimental if that wind comes in. It's just going to spit the 15 around.
Yeah, and you also saw his teammate rookie Louis Foster was also reporting some issues in the rear of the car, and it seemed like every single year we're always talking about at least one of the Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan racing cars, towards the bottom of the speed charts. And so in Graham Rahal at the very bottom of the overall speed report today, it's not good at all for that number 15 team. I'm sure he's feeling a lot of deja vu right now. And he's hoping that he won't have to go through the pressure bin in the last row shootout again. So hopefully that number 15 team will figure things out very quickly because we're getting to the point of the week now where we're really running out of time to figure this out. So they need to hope that their qualifying setup will be better than what they have for the race. And if they're at the bottom of the charts tomorrow, then they're gonna be panicking heading to Saturday trying to discover more speed, or it's gonna be like what happened a couple of years ago where you're stressing out trying to see what you can adjust, see what you can change to try to unlock as much speed as you can to try to get into the race. And I'm looking at the speed reports right now. I can say feel a little bit better about where Errol McLaren is right now. See, overall speed, Pato Award, 4th fast. I know he was a little frustrated by their lack of speed earlier in the week, but it seems like that they found something. And Kyle Larson's of 17th, Christian Lundgaard 18th, and Nolan Siegel 23rd. Good enough to make the race. Obviously, I think that team has things really figured out. it was also a good day for David Malukas in ninth as well, and some of the others. I'm looking on the overall speed report. Rena's VK 13th, Stingray Rob 12th, and now I'm gonna glance over at the no tow report. A little surprised to see Devlin DeFrancesco was fourth fastest on a no tow, which is good for Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan Racing. And if Graham and that 15 team were concerned, maybe that gives them a little hope that they can find something by looking at Devlin's team, see what they did with the setup. And actually, Graham wasn't really that bad without a tow. He was 16th fastest, only one spot behind his teammate Louis Foster in 15th. And I was also just checking out in one of the articles from the Associated Press, and they're talking about one of the big issues that teams are also facing. Are the heavier Indy cars with that big hybrid engine, and that some of the drivers are still figuring out how to drive the car with this heavier hybrid, and how Takuma Sato mentioned that he's battling rust right now because given how heavier these Indy cars are right now, been in the car only 1 month out of the entire year, trying to come back and compete at this level. It was already difficult to just do a one-off for Indy, but given how much heavier the car is now, it's gotten even more difficult for all of the drivers out
Yeah,
there. Hopefully they've kept fit during this time. Been in the gym and making sure that they're ready to go for race day. Because if you thought an Indy car was hard to handle before, it's twice as hard to handle now. And also, Josh, I want, before we go to the chat, I also wanted to get your response to what I'm about to say next. I think it's going to be an interesting one because earlier today, Fox Sports announced 2 additional analysts for Indy 500 coverage. Number 1, you got Tony Stewart, and number 2, Danica Patrick. So, what do you think about the additions of Smoke and Danica?
It's the most Fox thing Fox could do, isn't it? Tony Stewart and Danica Patrick. Okay, Tony, obviously you get that. That's a good call in many respects. He's opinionated himself, but he's a good analyst. Danica, as I said on the watch long commentary, this is where she's best suited. If she wants to be an analyst, this is where you do it, because she does know IndyCar. She does know how to race at the 500. She's the pole sitter here. She's led 18 laps. She's been in the race several times. She knows how it works. She doesn't work in Formula One. She doesn't work in NASCAR as a pundit as well. The stats show as one of the worst ever in NASCAR history. So yeah, there's that. But I don't like the fact that we are giving, especially Danica, airtime. Somebody who's been so problematic across her social media platforms, her public opinion on certain matters as well. And I don't agree with Danica's stance on her outlook on life. I will never, I said hate's a strong word. I hate what she stands for and I hate what she puts out. But I would always listen and take her opinion on an IndyCar because she's driven that. She knows what she's doing. I don't rate her as a Formula One pundit, but I would rate her as an IndyCar pundit. And she sort of suits IndyCar punditry better. So I don't mind her being on the coverage. There are better options to put on if you want to promote females in racing. There's miles better. Jamie Chadwick would be immediately one who should be racing in the 500 soon. Catherine Legg, Pippa Mann, especially Pippa Mann, would be great to go in there as well. But they've gone with Danica. It's a Fox thing to do. And yeah, Tony Stewart, he's a good call. He's too opinionated, but he knows his onions at this place as well. Or should I say, knows his milk. That's probably a more better opinionated thing for the 500. But yeah, so I'm just happy that we've got Chris hosting, to be fair. That seems like a nice one. He gets to do both Daytona and Indy in the same year. That's a nice thing.
Yeah, definitely a nice thing for Chris Myers. I know he does the NASCAR race day on NASCAR on Fox. And then during the NFL season, gets to do a lot of NFL games in the booth. Really good broadcaster. He has been able to be a part of the coverage for the Daytona 500 and Indianapolis 500 in the same year. Definitely special because not many people can say that. And also Jamie Little's going to get to do the same thing as well on pit road, Daytona 500 and Indy 500 as well. And you see John down in the comments says happy for Tony Stewart. And actually in the past, when Fox was going through rotating hosts for his NASCAR on Fox coverage, Tony Stewart got to call a few races. I thought he did a reasonably good job. So he does have a relationship with Fox, and also Danica as well has a relationship with Fox. Thought she was one of those rotating hosts, and I agree that given her experience in IndyCar, that this is something that she's probably more suited to talk about compared to for being a pundit in Formula One. So I guess Fox is going to value her insights there when it comes to her past experience racing in the NTT IndyCar series. And then John also says you hope Kyle Larson makes the Fast 12, and if Larson, and if Larson does make the pole shootout, he's not going to be going for the pole because he'll have a flight awaiting to North Wilkesboro, since that is the priority. So regardless of what happens, Kyle Larson will not win the pole for this year's Indianapolis 500. And Denver says that you love the traditional format, but you think the Indy 500 should change the format to a 40-car field with 20 automatically qualifying and a 20-car last chance race of 100 laps for the last 13 spots. And I have to say, Denver, I honestly don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, Denver. With
1996 called it, wants its opinion back.
Yeah, I honestly don't think anything like that would happen. Maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll see a format change in the future, but I'm not sure if we're gonna have a last chance qualifying race because when it comes to the Indianapolis 500, a lot of people care about tradition. Like having a long week of practice, going through the qualifying trials, having bump day, and all that. I know the qualifying format has changed over the last few years and all of that. But automatic entries in the Indianapolis 500, I think that's a red line for a lot of people. Fans, drivers, and industry members alike. I remember when IndyCar was introducing their charter system, a lot of people were concerned that all of the charter entries were going to get a guaranteed spot in the Indy 500. Then you have a whole bunch of open cars, fighting to try to get in, and until a lot of people made a big fuss about that. And then when they had introduced the charter system, they announced that Indy 500 was going to stay untouched, but all other entries were guaranteed spots in all the other ovals and road and street course races. So I think if they were to change the rules for the Indy 500 and some in regard to automatic entries, I think people will show up to the Indy 500 not with excitement, pomp, and circumstance. They would show up with fire and pitchforks because that's something they would not enjoy at all.
Yeah.
And John's also asking, who do you guys think will miss the race? Did you want to respond to what I said, Josh? And if not, you can answer John's question there. Who you think could potentially miss the race?
I agree with you with the charter system. That was everybody's worry. And yeah, that was something that Tony Stewart tried to do, didn't he? And that caused the split. So yeah, we're never doing that again, ever. And if anything, I think with Doug in charge, as now the president of both IMS and IndyCar, he's got a firm grip on tradition. I mean, you just got to watch what he's been doing with the Fox team this weekend. I think Doug is the first president we've had in a long time who oozes the history of this place. It's almost like IndyCar and Indianapolis molded a person perfectly in order to be the visionary. He's so good at it, and he's so in touch with the history. I said this earlier on in the broadcast. Indianapolis feels like the only race that keeps both its past whilst embracing the present and looking to the future all in one. It's the only one that does it. Everything's changing in Le Mans. We've had the qualifying format change and the race is being tweaked. We've got Monaco, which is now tweaking. Indy's just still pure. It's driver and machine against the barriers and 2.5 miles and just running around. It's just so good. I love it. Right. Yes. Who do you think is going to miss the race? Current bet, I'm going for Rahal, Ferrucci, or one of the Premers, or Prema, however you want to call it. They're my top at the bottom of the list because they've just had a shocker so far this week. What about you?
Yeah, Josh, I don't have much to add. I think those are probably going to be the ones I would probably pick to miss the race. Probably one of the Prema cars. They're still, to their credit, they are slowly getting a little bit faster, but still not comfortably fast enough. Where you'd be like, you can go to sleep, be like, yeah, I think we're going to be good to make the race and all of that. So I think that they could potentially be the ones in trouble. Then obviously Ferrucci, Graham Rahal as well. I think those are probably the easy choices when it comes to drivers who could potentially miss the race. And looking at the no tow report today, you see some of the drivers down there who are more than likely going to miss the race. No, I know Scott Dixon, on no tow report, he's down in 28. I don't think he's going to be panicking at all. Kyle Larson was 27th on no tow. They're not going to be panicking And for goodness sake, Alex Palou was 24th. So, he's not going to be panicking either. So that's why I don't traditionally look at the no-toe report very closely on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. The only time I really pay attention to it is on Fast Friday to see who's got the stuff and who doesn't. So I think tomorrow's obviously going to be extremely revealing. But if I had to bet on it early, probably one of the Primas, maybe Ferrucci or unfortunately, Graham Rahal or one of the Rahal Letterman racing cars. And then John's is agreeing with Denver, saying the IndyCar needs to expand to 4 to 500. And like the problem is, given the costs, this is really hard because it would be great to have, it would be great to have, I'd say 40 entries, but, given like history and the tradition, I think a lot of people would really like to see, stick with the field of 33 for the race. But if we have a field of, keep the field of 33, 11 rows of 3 to start the race, and then you have 40 entries, that'd be 7 cars, going home. It would be just like the good old days, right? When you show up to Indy, no one's locked in, and then you got to try to lay down a fast time. And then if you're just not fast enough, if you're 34th and back, sorry, I'm sorry this happened, but, you're not going to race you're not gonna race this year.
What we need.
And like getting to 40 entries, in today's climate, would be extremely difficult. Number one, I was briefly mentioning, the cost that it takes to run an IndyCar program, and then the amount of chassis that you have available. I'm not sure if there's 40 chassis floating out there, and then also the engines, that each manufacturer is able to produce. I think Chevrolet, Honda right now, they can't produce like no more maybe than like 18, I believe. I think that was the number. So like if you're trying to bring more entries, that's just not sustainable, or fair to Chevrolet or Honda to try to, put that on them, where they'd be like they have to try to, provide engines to, all these different cars. It's just not sustainable for their business models at all. And so if you wanted to try to get to 40 cars at some point, or at least 40 entries, you need to have a third manufacturer. And that's something that IndyCar has been hunting down for the longest time now, but we still haven't seen a third manufacturer emerge yet.
Yeah, we've had rumors of Toyota, Ferrari over the years, but nothing has ever come to Cropper. So taking a look at our upcoming schedule, you can stay tuned for additional coverage of Fast Friday and qualifying in the coming days as well. Sunday afternoon, Grid Live wrap-up is 90 minutes after Formula One Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. And later in the day on Sunday, we've got Grid Live pre-race, previewing the NASCAR Cup Series race at the All-Stars at the North Wilkesboro Circuit. Monday, Grid Encore, 7 p.m. Eastern, recapping the truck race and the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro. Arca East is at Flat Rock, and plus Formula 2 and Formula 3 at Imola. And does Larson have a backup car in case he crashes tomorrow Saturday? Yes, he does. He does have a backup car. He has another backup car, which is an old road course car of McLaren's as well from last season. So they do have a backup car. That was something I heard earlier on in the week. I'll double check and bring that tomorrow to see if he needs it. Please do continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you very much for helping us reach 1,600 subscribers. We're now inching closer to our next milestone of 2,000 subscribers. And you can hit the bell icon to get notifications so you'll always know when we go on the air, and follow our social media platforms and visit gridnetworktv.com. You can take 5 minutes to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. You can join Colin, Mark, Michelle, Robin, David, and Matthew, who invest each month in the Grid Network. And we do encourage you to join these fine folks to help us keep us on the air. And once we hit $500 per month, we can afford to send our teams to track more often and continue growing our media outlet. The link to all of that is in the link description below. And if you want to make a one-time donation, you click on the Buy Me a Coffee link, get your name on the board, and invest as much as you want, and consider buying a specific on-air personality or cup of coffee, and they will thank you on the air as well. For Kobe Lambeth, I'm Joshua Birch. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next time for more action. Bye-bye.